Is it the end of globalization, or is there a new phase of globalization? I think it's the latter, but what I mean by that is China and the U.S. are going to decouple. Again, some of these things are happening anyway. The war made it worse. The pandemic made it worse, but it was happening anyway. Xi Jinping has now elevated himself through National Party congresses and other ideological means to the role of the new Mao Zedong. Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, and these other guys, like, who cares? They're footnotes. Deng Xiaoping, he gets a gold star, but it's really now Mao and Xi Jinping. He's the new Mao. And he had decided to decouple the Chinese economy from the U.S. anyway, before everything we're talking about. And of course, Trump, when he was president, was kind of thinking along the same lines. Now we get a Biden. He's not all there, but he's certainly got a globalist crowd around him. But too bad. It's not working. So we're going to blow up the global supply chains. We already have. They'll be rebuilt, but along new lines. So let me give you a very concrete example. The biggest semiconductor manufacturer in the world and the most sophisticated is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, TSM. Yeah. And then kind of Intel is like a close second. They're both really good. And they're down to 5 nanometer chips, working on 3, but the best the Chinese can do is maybe, 10 or 15. They're just not in the same league, and same with the Russians. They have separately announced they're building new fabs. It's a fabrication plant for semiconductors in the United States, Taiwan, and they're $10 billion each. And they're going to take 3 to 5 years to build, because you can't, it's not a question of 4 walls. These things are very sophisticated, very hard to do right. So Taiwan Semiconductor is putting theirs, I believe, in Texas, and Intel announced that they're putting theirs in Oregon. Okay, why is the biggest semiconductor company in the world based in Taiwan building a plant in Texas? Well, welcome to the new globalization, which is the U.S. is onshoring all this technological capability. We don't want to be dependent on China or Taiwan, or for that matter, South Korea. We don't want to be dependent on those supply lines. We're going to build it here. If you're Taiwan Semiconductor, you want to do the same thing, because are you waiting for the Chinese invasion? Well, maybe, we'll wake up and here it comes. Now, there's a new military doctrine called the broken nest, and it's based on a Chinese proverb. And the proverb is, if there's a broken nest, how can the eggs not be broken? And as applied to Taiwan, China may or may not invade. I think the odds of that have gone up, but the odds have certainly gone up. That's easy to see if they do. And the big military question is, will the U.S. 7th Fleet intervene, and we'll be in a shooting war with China, and we're sinking their aircraft carriers and they're trying to sink ours, etc. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that either we or the Taiwanese will destroy all the semiconductor capacity in Taiwan. We're not going to leave that for the Chinese. This is scorched earth. This is what the Russians did to Napoleon. Hey, welcome to Moscow, but good luck finding some food. If the Chinese take Taiwan, they're not going to have a semiconductor industry, which has a deterrent value. Would make you think twice about doing it if you're the Chinese. But that's why the semiconductor industry is coming back to the United States. Now apply that to pharmaceuticals, mining, strategic metals, and a lot else, and you can see the implications of it. So now I hypothesize, but I think there's good evidence for it, that there will be a new globalization, but it'll be like a club, members only. And the members will be, the Five Eyes and close allies, and, let's include the French, they can join the club. But the point being, we'll trade among ourselves. What we'll have in common is democracy, while it lasts, and some rule of law, and some common culture, etc. But the Chinese are going to have to start their own club, maybe in East Asia. Hopefully the Japanese will be in our club. The Russians remains to be seen. And the big wild card is India, because India is probably, as we're speaking, surpassing China in population. If it isn't already, it'll be the number 1 most populous country on earth. And to their credit, they've had a functioning democracy since 1947. Now, lots of other problems with socialism and inefficiency and some corruption and all that, but they're a long-standing democracy with the largest population in the world, immense potential human capital. So where do they come out? So that's to be determined. But we'll probably end up with a new globalization that will be quite different, because it will involve a lot more onshoring, less reliance on trading partners. And to the extent you do have to rely on trading partners, that's always a fact of life, it'll be a kind of members-only club, and the Chinese will go their own way. But that also means things are going to be more expensive. To me, the saddest case, and I've spent a lot of time there going back 40 years, is Africa. Because Africa does have enormous potential. I always tell people Africa doesn't exist. You have to travel around Africa to know it doesn't exist. It's like 58 countries from, with a large section that's unpopulated. The Sahara Desert, I've been out in the Sahara Desert. Northern Africa, of course, is Muslim and speak Arabic and Berber culture and descent, a lot of European influence. It's almost like an extension of Europe in some ways. I mean, certainly in antiquity that was true. And then South Africa, lots of political problems, but moderate climate, great wine, beautiful, beautiful part of the world. A lot of people haven't been there, just picture it as jungle. Well, there's some jungle. I've been in the jungle, but there's high plateau, just gorgeous areas. So it's got incredible diversity, incredible different cultural strands and threads, huge natural resources. What they don't have is a good rule of law. They don't have governance. That's just, I don't know why you think someone would wake up, but they don't. But they're going to have to pick sides. Some of these countries, and I would say Zambia, Zambia, but also Zimbabwe, some of the others are practically Chinese colonies. I know colony is a bad word and we don't have them anymore, but economically we do. And China has gone in. When China does a mining project, it's like they create a lot of local jobs. Some. They send in Chinese by the thousands, by the plane load, build company towns, mostly populated with Chinese, strip the minerals. They're not environmentally conscious. I know involved with the gold mining industry here and there. I visited mines and refineries and mills where they crush the ore and turn it into what's called doré. I mean, they have these vats. You do use cyanide in extracting gold and getting gold out of the ore, but you have to have a vat, a cache. And you got to account for every drop. And when the cyanide that comes out has to be measured against the cyanide that went in, and they better be the same. Like, you can't be throwing the cyanide into rivers and streams, but they do in China. They do, and the water's poisoned, and they've poisoned something like 90% of their freshwater rivers are literally poisoned. That's how they treat Africa now. And I'm sure the leaders, in my day, the leaders used to get 30% off the top, except for Mobutu, who took 50%. But, to the extent they're still doing that, if that doesn't change, then Africa is just kind of a basket case. They could pick sides. They could join this club that I've described, and maybe benefit from that. But it's going to be a little bit more like, the 50s and 60s, you don't hear it much anymore, but the third world, it was U.S. and Western Europe and, Australia and a few other places were the first world, and the communists were the second world. Everybody else was in the third world. It was synonymous with underdevelopment, corruption, and worse. But we may get back to that where it's, the U.S. and, the